Good morning. Good morning. You are watching the Couples Academy show. My name is Lakeisha Hines, and I'm joined with me the beautiful, the illustrious Miss Jules Smith. I have the dashing debonair Mr. Roland Bradley, and the man in charge, okay, Sergeant Roderick. Good morning. How are you all? How you doing? How y'all
Good
feeling?
morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning,
Good
Keisha.
morning, Lakeisha.
Good morning. It's hump day, right? Today is Wednesday, right?
Yes, it
Yes.
is.
Okay, I'm just making sure it's all running together over here at Couples Academy. We got a lot going on for sure. Today we are talking about common problems that married couples deal with. There are a lot of problems, a lot of issues that married couples deal with, right? But we're gonna focus on top, top. We'll try to get through all 12. If we don't, it's okay. Don't judge us. We want to make sure that we're giving you a comprehensive explanation of these problems. So, some of the things that we talk about all the time, I would say, are infidelity for sure, because this is Couples Academy. This is our specialty. This is definitely what we focus on for sure. But I think that a lot of times our listeners or our Couples Academy family, they're not clear on the different types of infidelity. So, understanding that it's not just about sex, that it literally could be an emotional affair that someone is having. It could be financial. It could be, where you are just constantly lying, and it could be lies of omission. That's something a lot of times people don't think about. It's like, well, I never directly lied. Yeah, but you withholding information. Those are lies by omission. So understanding that there are many, many different types of infidelity, I think is really important for you all to educate yourselves about, to ensure that there is no betrayal within your relationship. Another top thing I think we talk about all the time is communication. I know even on my show SOS, I'm always talking about communication. I have couples coming to me wanting to talk about sex and wanting to jump right into the bedroom, but I'm like, well, are y'all talking outside of the bedroom? No. Okay, well, how do you expect to have any type of physical conversation in the bedroom if you're not talking outside of it? So that communication is critical, and making sure that you do it effectively and efficiently, and making sure that after you have these courageous conversations that we all talk about, that there's some type of progress that you're making, that you've had some type of resolution on the other side of it. And then I think another big thing that we talk about often is what is it? What is it? What is it? Help me out, Jewel. What is it? What's another top thing we talk about?
Intimacy.
Oh, how could I forget? Yes, so we do talk about intimacy a lot. Do you know that there are like 12 different types of intimacy? I don't even think people know that, but there are many,
Wow.
many different types of intimacy. The one that we focus on most often is physical, of course, sex, right? And then another one, I think top one that we focus on is trying to have that emotional connection and intellectual connection with our partner. But there's so many different types of intimacy.
Spiritual, financial.
Financial, exactly. There's also experiential, where you are experiencing different adventures together. So
Mhm.
many different types of intimacy, and so again, we talk about those a lot too. And yesterday, I wasn't on yesterday. Who was on yesterday?
It was me and Walter. We talked
Okay,
about
so
trauma.
you all talked about trauma, and I think we have talked about trauma. And did you guys touch on grief at all yesterday?
No, we didn't.
Okay. So, how that impacts relationships, anytime we are bringing baggage into our relationship from the past, it's going to affect your current situation. If we don't heal our past traumas, we don't deal with any grief that we may have been suffering from, eventually it will bleed over into our relationship and on to our spouse. And so, Jewel, was there something specifically that you guys gave the people yesterday in case they missed, to help them understand how to recover from any type of trauma that they may be experiencing?
Well, one of the main things we discussed is how important it is that both parties have a conversation, preferably before you get married, about any type of trauma that you have gone through in your life. Because what's happening is what we are seeing that either they have buried it so far in their conscious that when they get married and something triggers that thought, that trauma that they had is normally the one thing that now becomes a domino effect to where the other partner had no clue that this particular conversation or this particular place was going to set this other, their spouse off as far as the thoughts, i.e., if there is a woman who had been sexually abused
Yeah.
and she was touched a certain way, if their spouse touches her and all of a sudden now she's withdrawn, that spouse is just going to think that, she doesn't want him or something of the sort. Where no, it was just the fact he never knew that there was a sexual assault. So
Mm.
therefore, that trauma is now playing a part in their marriage and it's falling apart.
Absolutely. I think that was a great point that you made because guess what? We've had couples come through Last Chance Weekend where the spouse found out for the first time at Last Chance Weekend that something had happened to that spouse in childhood. They had never had a conversation, they had never talked about it. And I remember specifically one couple, it was the wife who had been violated, and the husband was like, relieved because it's like, okay, now I know I'm not crazy. Now I know it's not me. But then
Exactly.
he was pissed at the same time because it's like, how could you not tell me this? So these are definitely conversations that we do have to have with our spouse. See, everything goes back to communication. And even the grieving part, we all grieve differently. And, I know, Roland, recently you guys had a situation happen. I won't put your business out there, but I know that you have a family member who is on the other side of recovery from an injury. And I know that puts a strain on your relationship when you have someone that you're taking care of or someone passes away. I just had a death in my family recently. And when you are dealing with grief, it puts such a strain on the entire family. Can you speak on that just a little bit, how grief affects your marital relationship?
Absolutely. A lot of times, obviously, a traumatic thing has happened. We were expecting this person, our loved one, to be around for a long time. And we take so many things for granted. We take life for granted. We take our spouses for granted. We take family members for granted. And when we experience this type of trauma, it should bring us closer together as a
Mm-hmm.
couple, as a unit. We should be able to lean on each other. And so oftentimes what happens is because we're not dealing with prevalent situations, communication, being intimate with one another, not physically, but just being able to tap into the souls of one another. When
Mm-hmm.
trauma happens, when grief happens, and it's not properly dealt with, then it's more grief because the relationship is now grieving. And so oftentimes we have to be able to come together, communicate with one another, and be on the same page because life happens and sometimes it happens unawares. And we have to be willing and able to lean on one another. That's going to be the biggest thing. If we can support one another and lean on one another, we can get through anything. But if we're, combative, if we're always fighting one another, if we can't get on one accord, if we can't communicate, when grief happens, it's going to be a struggle.
Absolutely, 100%. Like I love that you said, it should be bringing us closer together because we should be there supporting each other and being that sounding board, that shoulder to cry on, whatever is needed in that moment. So, yes, Mr. Rowland, exactly. So, we're going to jump into now maybe some things, some tips that we haven't shared with you guys before, topics that maybe we haven't talked about surrounding marital problems. And the first one is disrespecting boundaries. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I will just tell you, I will confess, I have been one who at one point was extremely controlling in my marriage, and a lot of it had to do with insecurities. A lot of it had to do with behaviors that I was seeing that I didn't approve of, that I felt like that is not of God and you need to be doing something different. So at the end of the day, though, it was about fear, understanding now my personality. I'm a 7 wing 6, understanding that it's rooted in fear, right? So it was always this fear that this behavior doesn't change, or if I don't control this, if I don't dictate how this goes, then I'm going to get hurt. And ultimately what I was doing was violating boundaries that were my husband's, and like really trying to tell him what to do, trying to tell him how to be, and it's exhausting. So I need some help here. Talk to me about these boundaries, and how we need to how we need to respect each other's boundaries.
Well, Lakeisha, I mean, when you're talking about boundaries, think about what boundaries do. Boundaries create a form of security, a form of safety. Boundaries keep everybody level set and on the same page. Everybody understands the rules, the regulations, the expect what is expected. Everybody also understands the consequences when the boundaries are not respected or violated. And that's why they're so important in a relationship, especially when you factor in two people coming from different backgrounds, maybe different upbringings, maybe different understandings about what a relationship looks like, what a marriage looks like. So coming together, having the conversation about what we want our relationship and our marriage to look like, what we will allow as a couple, what we will not allow as a couple, and then again, the consequences involved. Now, boundaries play an even more important role, although they were very important at the beginning, but after a betrayal, they play an even more critical role, because now not only do they set the tempo, but they are a major tool in rebuilding both trust and, better than trust, certainty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love what you said. And also, just I want to add one more thing. I think it's important that we allow each other to be our individual selves. I understand
Mm-hmm.
that when we come together, we become one, right? We're one flesh. I understand that. But God created us all as individuals. We're all unique individuals. And, the more I began to embrace and accept my husband's differences, the more attractive he became, because I'm like, whoa, he thinks so different from how I do. Now, at one point used to irritate me. I'm not gonna lie, I really, really did. But I understood that it was a purpose behind that. Like, if we got two people that think the exact same way, want the exact same thing, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no variety in this. It can get boring. You look like you're about to say something, Miss Jewel.
Well, I was just really listening to both of you guys, and I was reflecting back on a few conversations that I've had with a few of couples that I've had sessions with. And when we talk about boundaries, one of the important key ones that I keep hearing is couples that are blended families.
Mm.
So, when you are a blended family and you have
Yes.
a child by either an ex-wife or someone else, setting those boundaries is very important. It's
Mm-hmm.
key because, you have a marriage, but yet you still have the mother or the father of your child. And that mother and father of your child cannot dictate what goes on in your home.
That's
So
good.
there's boundaries that have to be set, with that person, where you have to work
Mm.
together because you have to still raise this child together. So
Woo!
when it comes to boundaries, that is definitely one situation y'all need to sit and talk about.
I have a client right now that's dealing with that, literally dealing with that, trying to figure out how to keep the peace. The husband is in the middle because he is the one who stepped out, and he's trying to keep the peace with his spouse and trying to keep the peace with the baby mama. And it's just a lot of drama. And I mean, like you said, everything comes back to boundaries. The more they define these boundaries, the less drama there will be. All right. So the next common problem in marriage is going through different life stages. And we all are going to do this, right? We all, I mean, you live long enough, you're going to experience some changes physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so it literally can take a toll on your relationship. All right, help me out here with these life stages.
it's interesting. We're talking about that because, we have a lot of. Well, I'm not going to generalize. There are couples out there that maybe one has a military background, one doesn't. One, have a higher education, one doesn't. One has been working all their life, one just now realizing what work is. And with that, they're at different levels in life. I mean, if you worked all your life, at some point there's a sick and tired of work mentality versus the person that may not have to work and now they're hitting a groove. They kind of understand a little bit of business and about the workforce. So if going back to that C word, if there's no communication, then there's quickly going to be a disconnect, and if not careful, a chasm building between the two in their relationship. And it has to be addressed. You don't want to belittle the person that's all fired up about their position in life at the current moment, just like you don't want to belittle the person or the spouse that's maybe stagnated, looking for a new challenge or a new opportunity. So again, it goes back to communication.
Absolutely.
And I also think really quick, because I also think too, when we talk about the life changes, we have these midlife crises, right? Yeah. That we go through. But we also have midlife changes. And sometimes we don't get it. The light bulb doesn't go off until later on in life. And now we have to
we don't want to talk about it either.
we don't want to talk about it. But we have to restructure and revamp how we've been doing things, because a lot of times we've been doing life, but we realize we've been doing it the wrong way. And so that becomes the issue or problematic when one person realizes that we have to do things a different way, but because I've been doing it this way for so long, then this is how it ought to be. I used to go into companies and train, and I walk in and the folks would get upset because they're like, we've been doing it this way. And I'm like, you've been doing it this way wrong. I'm like, and so, a lot of times we don't want change. We don't like change, but change is inevitable. And we have to be willing to change and have midlife changes versus midlife crisis.
Come on, Roland.
Let's address the elephant in the room with the midlife crisis, the midlife changes, that weight change.
Oh my God.
that weight change. You would think, okay, you gained a few pounds or whatever, but that can take a toll on somebody mentally.
Yeah.
It really takes a toll when you have been a certain size for so long. You get married, now you're cooking every day, maybe, or eating out every day, or you didn't have a baby and the weight starts to change. So now you're looking at yourself different and your spouse is looking at you a little differently. Those are things that you still can control, because you can use that as an opportunity to, okay, I've gained a little weight, let me go to the gym, work out with your spouse, do something together to make those changes look different in your eyes, opposed to just saying, oh man, I don't like the way this fits on me. And then, babe, you look good. You look good.
Communication is key. Communication is key, because a lot of times, ladies, and this is not all the time, but a lot of times, we're feeling a certain type of way about a certain thing, and our husbands are looking like, yes, I'm loving it, all of it, like, and we're over here having all types of feelings and emotions, but they good, like they real good. So anyway, you guys, we're just scratching the surface on these common problems that married couples deal with, and so we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back to give you the rest of them. Don't go anywhere. welcome back. Welcome back again. You're watching a Couples Academy show. We are so excited to be here with you today, and I love who is here with us today. I just want to shout out our Couples Academy family. Save 16902, Vashawn, Callie, Power Couple. What's up? Kiki, do you love me? Are you? Oh, sorry. Stephanie, Tori, Marcus, Alan, Aubrielle, and is that it? Did I get everybody? I said Alan. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you guys for joining us. So we're continuing our conversation about the common problems that married couples deal with. And this one's spicy. It's a little spicy. It's like that fire in the background with you, Rod. Jealousy. Oh my goodness. Nobody wants to talk about this. Nobody wants to admit it. Come through, Jewel. What's going on with this jealousy? How does it impact these couples?
People don't even realize that there is any form of jealousy, or they don't think that it's possible that my spouse could be jealous of me or anything about me. One of the things you want to look at is someone that is, withdrawn when you're talking about certain things, a little standoffish, leave the room when, you walk in or whatever. But jealousy is very common, especially when it comes to someone who has a job that requires their attention a lot, where they're working a lot of hours, where they're working on the weekend, where, they change their plans with their spouses or their family because the job is calling them. So again, no boundaries, but it makes the other spouse kind of feel like they're neglected.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have time for them. It also can look like, as women, we have these young children, and we might stay at home with them all the way from birth, till they're able to go to school. Well, that child develops a bond with that mom or that father, whichever one that is there. So the other spouse now kind of feels like, well, where do I fit in at?
Wow.
We have to be intentional to make sure that we include our spouses, especially in that situation, because, just for example, I come home and my child is hollering and screaming and they don't want me. All they still want is mommy. Everything's about mommy, 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 mommy. Well, dad might be like, cool. But after a while, dad's going to start feeling some kind of way, and, that jealousy sets in, that he doesn't have that relationship or that bond, so it's really important that when things happen, you control those. You have, again, communicate with your spouse when you're feeling some type of way. Women that are out in the workforce, if you're making more money than your spouse, that can contribute to some jealousy.
Absolutely.
It really can. Opposed to, you should never work against each other. Be happy for your spouse, but it's also a conversation that always needs to be held. Any input from you guys?
Well, listen, I'm touch on this and then we got to move. Listen, you put a completely different spin on this, Jewel. I was not expecting that. So yes, you're absolutely right. I was thinking about the one who's jealous that you might be doing something, that you creeping or something like that. Jewel, you came with a completely different perspective. So I'm going to come from the one that everybody else was probably thinking about too, was you being jealous of, your partner potentially looking at other people, or you suspect they're looking at other people, because we've heard that so many times where it's like we were out and the person is accusing the other person of looking at somebody, and they're like, I'm just checking my surroundings to make sure nothing is going to pop off in here. Like literally, I'm not even paying attention to who or what walked by. So a lot of times it has to do with lack of self-esteem and just dealing with being too controlling, having anger issues, being overbearing, just again, not being confident within yourself, not being confident in that relationship. So we got to get that together.
And Keisha, I did that intentionally because most people think exactly what you said. They forget about these other things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, if this isn't happening, they shouldn't be jealous. Well,
Right.
no, there's still some other things out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that we're unaware of. All right. So the next common problem, boredom. So I'm going to talk about being bored in the bedroom, because that's just what I do. And I'm just trying to tell you, everybody, when you have been in a relationship with someone for an extended period of time, you have tried multiple positions, You have brought in different things into the bedroom, and you are now in this place where we are just bored. Like, what else can we do? There's more. There's more. I can help you. We can't talk about it right now, but there is more. But the point a lot of times is that we're not doing the work outside of the bedroom. I tell you guys this all the time. Like, everybody wants to talk about, well, how do I do this and do that? Well, a lot of it has to do with connecting with your partner on an emotional and an intellectual and a spiritual level. And then everything is kind of like a domino effect. Everything falls into place in the bedroom. Also, outside of the bedroom is really when we're not taking the time to have those play dates. We're not taking the time to have date nights. We're not taking the time to just talk. Like, it doesn't have to be about a problem. Let's just talk about what happened in the news today. Like, what's going on in the world. As much as I cannot stand sports, you guys, like, really, I cannot. I really don't. But I have found some shows, some commentators that I really, really like. And so that's an area where my husband and I can connect, because I'm like, all right, what Foxy say today? Tell me what Foxy said. That's my boy. Love Foxy. So tell me what he said today. Stephen A, he too loud. I can't take him. But there are some others who I really enjoy. And so we connect in that way. So you have to find new ways to connect with your spouse so that you do not experience this boredom, which makes you want to tap out, which makes you want to check out. And then everybody's going their separate way. You do your thing, I do my thing. Well, I like play, so I'm gonna go to a play with my girlfriends. Well, I like sports, so I'm gonna go to a game with my friends. That's cool, but we still need to be doing things together. And there are times where literally I take one for the team and I literally go and watch his favorite team because that's what he's into. I wanted to go to the Dali Museum. He took me to the Dali Museum. He could care less about Salvador Dali, but that's my boy. So he went. So we do that because we want to keep our connection. We want to keep it spicy. We want to keep trying new things, doing new things, and experiencing new adventures together.
And boredom will open up doors for other things that need not to be in your marriage. You know, if you're bored and you can't find that excitement at home, they look for it elsewhere.
Find somebody else to entertain you.
Hey, listen, the fact of the matter is we all want to be intellectually stimulated. And when we don't tap into that, as my lovely wife would say, she wants to be stimulated intellectually. We have these conversations that opens up our horizons, that opens up our minds. We don't have time to be bored because we live in a world that is much larger than the space that we lock ourselves into. And so when we step outside of that, and when we can go beyond our front nose, then we can see how much more we can do, how much more we can have, and how much more we can explore. And when we become explorers in the relationship, there's no time to be bored because we're always looking for something to do.
Yes, I love
You know,
it.
you should always change up every so often. If you know that every Monday we're going to the movies, it's time to change. If you're every Wednesday, you're watching the same show, it's time to change. So the more you do it, the better it becomes because you just keep switching up. And just like Roland said, everything becomes new. You know, you step outside your home and there's so many things to do. Bring it inside your home.
If you know that every time you're going to get a back rub, and then we're going to move to kissing on your neck, and then we're going to move to rubbing your shoulder. If you know every single time, like I can tell you, boom, 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 you need to switch it up in the bedroom too.
Predictability. Well, let me add something to that, Keisha. If you know that every time boom, 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 but you know your spouse enjoys boom, 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 then you better keep doing boom, boom, boom.
Well, yeah.
Now you might need to figure out how to add something to that boom, boom, boom.
There you go.
To keep it creative. But if you know your spouse, and that even goes to what Sister Jewel said, because I love what she said, change it up. Know your spouse. If your spouse is one of those that don't like surprises, then you better be careful. You better have that conversation.
Yeah, I'm married to that person. I learned the hard way. I'm like, bro, your birthday's coming up. What do you want to do? I'm not surprising you anymore. And so to your point, Mr. Rod, to your point, if do boom, boom, boom in the laundry room instead of the bedroom, how about
exactly.
switch it up? Change the location, everybody. Change the location. All right, you guys, this has been such a fun conversation, even though we've been talking about problems, but a lot of times that's something else. We stop laughing. We lose the humor in our relationships, and we cannot lose the humor because there's so much that we're dealing with. There's so much stress. There's so many different issues, and we still have to find ways to continue doing life together in a fun way, spoken from a true seven, right? So, you guys, you've been watching the Couples Academy show.
Hey, Keisha, before we go, last chance weekend, everybody.
Last chance weekend. Oh,
yes.
Weekend.
Yes, it is. This weekend. Last chance weekend is every second weekend of the month.
Yes, and it's my honey bunny's birthday, so I won't be there. But any of you who are not whether you having a birthday or not, this might be the best gift you give to yourself is a restored marriage. But we good on our side, so we going to Coco. Okay. So you all sign up. It's not too late. You can still attend Last Chance Weekend and change your life, change your marriage. You know, for sure. We want you all to experience the fullness of what God has for you. So it's not too late to make that call. Make that call. All right, you all. You've been watching the Couples Academy show. We want to say thank you for tuning in. We'll be right back here tomorrow. So we'll see you then. Have a good day.